This podcast is powered by Pelotonia. To learn more about our goal to end cancer, visit pelotonia.org or see the link in the episode notes.
Dave had a lump at the side of his neck. I think they identified it fairly quickly. He had surgery the beginning of 2013, January of 2013, and that's when they removed the tumor and then realized it was malignant. Scans all came back clean, and so he was on the mend, and we thought all things were good. And then in July, he found another lump, and so we got that removed. We were still able to go on our family vacation at the end of July, and at that time, he felt like he had a tingling in his leg. And we'll just bring up that symptom at the time. And then that's when they did another scan on his back, and he had tumors all up and down his spine.
He had all the reason in the world to complain, and yet he was the one who was always encouraging me when I was sad about everything. He was the one who was always the first to crack a joke in a room, and I'm like, here you are lying on this bed. How can you possibly be filled with all this joy and this humor? And I'm crying, and he's like, I love you.
Welcome to One Goal, a podcast from Pelotonia. We're a community that's dedicated to funding life-saving cancer research through a 3-day experience of cycling and volunteerism. I'm your host and ride community manager, Jill Lendino. Your journey with us to the finish line begins now. Through research, we will see an end to cancer. Thankfully, every single penny raised through our riders, virtual riders, and volunteers goes directly towards the solution. This is made possible by our major funding partners, the L. Burns Foundation, Huntington, the American Electric Power Foundation, and Peggy and Richard Santulli. It's because of them, all of our partners in this dedicated community, that all of this is possible. Though not all those who have been touched by cancer are still with us, their courageous spirit lives on within their loved ones, and that's something that cancer will never be able to touch. This is the case with David Schniadt. His driven, magnetic, and fun-loving personality thrives through his family today, but in a special way, through his young son, Cal. In this conversation, we're joined by mom, Becky, and 2 of their children in this episode, Dave's joy.
It came instantly to Dave. He was so excited one day. He's like, I figured out the name for our Peloton. I'm like, okay, what is it? He's like, Spokesman for a Cure. Because he's like, do you get it? Like spokes of a bike, and then a spokesman being, we can talk about the cause.
Yeah. 2013,
the year that Dave had cancer and started the ride, when it came time for Pelotonia, he couldn't do the ride. He was paralyzed. Most of his body was paralyzed at that point. He had maybe 1.5 good legs working. Yeah. And so he couldn't end up doing the ride, but he did a ride from the city limit to the city limit in Granville. So when the rest of our team got to Granville, he hopped on a recumbent bike and he rode from city limit to city limit. And everybody came and was cheering him on, and our whole team was riding behind him. And so ever since then, even though Cal has been too young to ride, our son, he has led us through. Yeah. So when we would meet in Granville, he would ride us through Granville, kind of taking his dad's place and riding through.
Oh, Cal, that must be pretty cool.
That was pretty sweet. I mean, I just gotta follow the path that my dad got to do.
That's so special. So when he was able to do that ride, just the last little bit in his community in front of all of his friends and family, I mean, were you riding or were you watching from the sidelines, Becky?
Oh, I was riding. When Dave took the turn that we realized he wasn't going to be able to do the ride, I had signed up to only do 25 miles, but David was going to do the 100. He was an avid mountain biker, road biker, just a very fit guy. So, of course, he was going to do that. And so when we realized he wasn't going to be able to do the ride, we kind of stopped training and focusing on, him at that point. And at one point, Dave said, well, you're still riding. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that. So, okay. So I rode 25 miles, and then they picked us up in Pickerington. Yeah. And then we drove into Granville, where we waited for the rest of our team to meet us there. And that's when he rode us through. And at the time, our 2 daughters, they were cheering for our school. So all the cheerleaders came out in support of Madeline and Gabriella and their dad. Yeah. And so they had the streets lined with everybody else cheering everybody on. So it was quite a
Oh my gosh.
It was quite an experience. So yeah, so Dave and I rode, and then Cal at that time did not. He was with Grandma and Grandpa cheering us on.
Yeah. Do you guys remember seeing him ride in and that whole experience?
It was super cool. So I was cheering on the sidelines with my whole cheer team. And just being able to just watch my dad, he had like the goofiest smile on his face as he was riding his little like recumbent bike. Like it was the cutest thing ever. So awesome. And like what an image. And people like got really cool shots of it too. So like I still have like the pictures on my phone of just like him riding through. And like it's definitely one of like the more like inspiring moments of my life, being able to watch my dad, like who had been through so much already at this point, like push through like that final mile, which is like one thing that keeps me going whenever I ride. Everything hurts, and I'm like, okay, but like here my dad, almost paralyzed, was able to do this mile, so like therefore like I can continue on.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Even to this day when I'm riding, I'll think back if I'm struggling, you know, I'm like, okay, Dave did this, I can do it with my two good legs. So
Wow, that must just be an incredible memory, of course, for your family, but for everybody else. I've heard a lot of people talk about that moment too, and just remembering like, gosh, that's what keeps me going. That's what makes me like proud to be a Pelotonia rider, but also just a member of the Granville community, because that's what we celebrated and that's what we'll always remember. And it sounds just like an incredible day. What did you talk about that day?
I think we just talked about the experience, like what a unique experience it was. And it was, I think it was really special for Dave. Being able to ride through town and just seeing all the support of the community, it just really felt so positive, and we felt so supported. And it was a really great feeling. And I was just so happy that David could ride, because we just weren't even sure and how to be able to do. And that last little bit to the Granville High School where there's the rest stop, there's a little bit of an incline.
Yes, so, there is. I can attest to that.
I was, we were all so impressed that Dave could do it, but that just tells you the strength of that man. He's amazing.
Back up a little bit. So 2013 was, the first ride for Spokesman for a Cure. That was a year for you guys, right? Kind of going through everything and losing Dave, but then the team held together. What was it like the next year in 2014? It's your second year. I'm guessing a lot more people knew about the Peloton. How'd that go?
Again, generous amount of support, and we did another auction because, again, that was Dave's thing. So we did an auction to support our team, and held it at Apple Tree, which is the business that his dad and him owned. And we had another great success. Lots of people turned out for the auction, raised lots of money, and we had, again, good support in riders and such. So it was another fabulous year.
But let's fast forward a few years when Cal had a really fun idea. He asked a question first. What was the question that you asked, Cal?
Why can't kids be involved with like this amazing event?
Yeah. And it's because, you have to be 14 to get on the road, and we have to put that age down there. But so what did you do when you realized that you weren't old enough to ride in Pelotonia? How'd you kind of take that into an idea?
Well, I was really involved with it because I really wanted to just be a part of this wonderful community. So I was like, well, why don't I just start something that kids can do too?
Yeah. So who helped you with this idea?
I would give a lot of props to probably my grandpa and Dylan Niedermeyer, one of my best friends. I talk to school a lot.
Yeah. So you had this idea to start the kids' ride. Did you know where you were going to start it from or where you were going to end it?
Well, starting or ending would probably be an Apple Tree Auction Center where my grandpa and where my dad worked.
Yeah.
So what they did was we decided to have it kind of correspond with the auction that we had for their Spokesman for a Cure Peloton. So we started the ride in Granville, and they rode on the bike path, and then we had a police escort once the bike path ended in Newark to Apple Tree. And then we had a party for them as we were having our auction for the adults. So it kind of corresponded that way.
Yeah. And how did you get the word out that you were going to do this ride and you wanted all your friends to participate?
So Terry Niedermeyer, which is the mom of his friend Dylan that he was talking about, she's kind of our engine behind the whole thing, and she's really fabulous and had some great ideas. So we actually advertised through the school system, and they really stood behind us, and they had actually a pep rally that they would do. Mm-hmm. And so Cal would get up and speak and explain what the ride was all about. And so because it was the target age group, because the ride is for kids ages 8 to 14. So it was kind of our sweet spot.
Cal, were you nervous when you had to get up in front of your school and speak?
Oh, yeah, I was definitely nervous. I'm nervous right now.
There's only a couple of us here. You don't have to be nervous. So how does it work? You sign up to ride, and then what do you have to do from there?
So you sign up to ride, and then there's an entry fee, which is around like $25, and then
$20.
$20, and then you make a commitment by saying, like, I'm gonna raise $100, and the $25 leads up to $100. Mm-hmm. So you really just have to raise 80. But my first year, I got a bunch of like things in the mail, like from a bunch of people that I don't even know from. But Mom was like, "Oh, here's another one for you," and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then she was like, "Well, let's see, let's open it." And I opened it up, and it's just a check to Pelotonia, Team Spokes Kids, just with $100. And I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Wow. What a cool surprise that must be. I mean, getting money in the mail from people.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. And so how'd that make you feel whenever these people were sending in dollars?
Oh, well, I just knew that the word was out and that us kids, we can make a difference, even though we might not have everything that we need in life, but we can do things that every other adult can do.
So the first year that you hosted the ride, do you remember how many kids participated?
I think it was around maybe 35 or 55, something like that.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much been averaging between 50 and 60 kids each year.
Yeah. So everybody shows up. You guys are probably a little nervous, like, hope we keep everybody safe. Hope everybody has fun. Yeah. Gabriella, you're there, your friends, you're volunteering, and everybody's excited. Cal, what do you remember from that first ride?
Well, I was in the front of the line of all the bikers of the path, and then just a bunch of interviewers started to talk to me, and I was just basically they're just asking me why did you start this, and so I just told them why I started it and how kids can make an impact.
We were thinking, it'll probably take a couple of hours, so we'll have time to set up for the after party afterwards. And we're in the middle of setting up, and we get word that they're just
around the corner.
Yeah. No, they do a great job, and we have again lots of adults riding with them, and police. They're riding on the bike path with us too, and we've got emergency kits in case a tire blows or a child falls off their bike. So yeah.
It really is a mini Pelotonia.
Yeah.
You learned what you need to get adults out on the road and kind of just figure it out from there. So what do you remember thinking, seeing those kids come in the first year?
Well, I was a mess. I mean, tears were streaming down my face. I mean, it was quite the sight because at that point we rode into Appletree for the end of the ride. Now we kind of reversed things and we started Appletree and ride into Granville. But that first year, first couple of years when we rode into Appletree, seeing the kids riding along the road with the police car with those lights going, and then just this mass of kids, riding behind them, it was quite a sight. I mean, it was just, you realized how big and beautiful this experience is, and what a difference it made. It's just, I really felt like over the years we found, unfortunately, there's other kids like Cal who've lost a parent to cancer or have had a parent who's going through cancer, and I think it really is empowering to these kids, feeling like, there's nothing they can do when they see their parents going through this. But this is something they can do to make a difference and to help end this. So it was just, you just saw so much excitement and enthusiasm, coming. It's overwhelming. It's a really neat sight. What amazes me is Dave never, he was always so strong through the whole thing. And when he had this thought about starting this Peloton, just had this idea and he just did it. Mm-hmm. And which just reminds me of Cal, because he had this idea and he just did it. We just worked through it and we figured it out, and he's just like his dad that way. Yeah. So when I see him riding us through town, he's just the spitting image of his dad.
How have you seen some of your friends and classmates get creative with their fundraising?
Well, I don't really know what they're doing, but what I do is I just go door to door and just ask, the people in my neighborhood, I go through a prompt, and then I go, so, would you like to donate to this cause?
Yes, he
Who can say no to
story,
that?
Right. And then, but there's been a lot of kids, they'll do lemonade stands or bake sales, or I think for some kids it's overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, I've got to raise $100. How am I going to do that? Mm-hmm. And every year, kids raise more than their minimums, and which is just, I think it's inspiring to them too. Like, oh my gosh, I did that. That's exciting. And then you get to know that you really are making a difference because it's going to cancer research.
So the very first year was probably, I think, one of my biggest amount that I've ever accomplished, which was around, I think, like 1,500 something around there. And as a total for the first year, I think we raised a little over like $3,000, $4,000.
Actually, I think it was probably a little over 10,000 that first year.
Oh, my bad.
Even more. Even better.
Yeah.
So then over 4 years,
we've probably raised between 40 and 45,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
All from kids going out there. Just incredible. It makes me just light up. And I hope it does for all of you too.
My uncle and my grandpa were both diagnosed with cancer within a very similar time period.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this year has been a tough year for our personal family, as my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and then my brother as well. So I think they are on the other side of it, which is great. My dad's doing really well, and my brother, he went through his chemo treatments, and he's in remission now too. So that's good. But I think it was really hard because up until that point, my kids only saw cancer as death. You know? And so I was like, no, honey, not all the time, and this is why we ride, because more cures are being discovered, and we are able to save lives with it. So I think that really helped my kids, again, relate to our Pelotonia community, that this is important. This is why we do what we do. And
absolutely.
Because I truly believe 100% that the money that we've fundraised and that has been able to further the research into finding a cure for cancer is one of the reasons why, like, my Uncle Matt's cancer was a lot easier to cure than I ever thought it would be. But I think that without all of the funding going into the James, that wouldn't be the case today without Pelotonia.
Peloton changed to Team Granville spokesman. Mm-hmm. You guys have become this super team that represents really the most super part of Pelotonia's ride that everybody looks forward to seeing. And we're so grateful for how you've helped change that. So Team Granville changes, and then a couple years later, your family grows and changes a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
So yes, a couple years ago, I got remarried, and our extended family now, our new enlarged bonus family, is so supportive, and everybody has jumped right in. My husband Doug, he rides. My stepdaughter Sydney, she rides, and Ethan, our stepson, he rides too, and he's helped out with Spokes Kids, and he's developed into Pelotonia as well as a rider, and unfortunately, they've experienced cancer on their side of the family too. So it's just everybody's, unfortunately knows somebody. And so, so we've all supported each other. And it's just amazing that the love that I just never expected to, remarry again, because Dave was the love of my life. We were married for just under 20 years. And I just really feel that God and Dave both kind of orchestrated this whole union, and our family has just blended so perfectly. And I think as a family riding together this year, actually every single one of us can ride in Pelotonia together, which will be very excited. All 7 of us.
Oh my gosh!
It's going to be
that's a big commitment, fundraising wise.
It is a very big commitment.
Oh my gosh,
we're excited about it.
Yeah, you get this all the time, I think, but it's like the Brady Bunch.
It is.
That was our Christmas card one year.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I've met some of your siblings, and they're just lovely, and you all just seem to have the best time together. So
yeah, I hate saying my stepdaughter or stepson, because I really think of it as like my bonus daughter and my bonus son.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by, every year I'm actually surprised by the generosity of people. And whether they're only able to donate $10 or if they can donate $100, it's just the people are just willing to support it. And I think they want to. A lot of people feel like they can't ride in it because for whatever reason, physical reasons or time constraints or whatnot. But by asking them to donate to your ride, it allows them to feel a part of it too. And so every year I'm just surprised by the generosity. I think I start out each year thinking, gosh, am I going to be able to raise the money? And every year it happens, and it's just people are so generous.
I'm curious, are there little things that you guys do as a family or individually to celebrate your dad or remember him and things that he liked?
I remember the first year after he died, on September 1st, that day, we all got together in like our Wildwood Park, and we were like, we've always wanted to shoot off Chinese like lanterns. That like from Tangled, like it's just so pretty, so magical. And so we were going to do that. We were singing songs. Like it was so cute. We lit them up and they almost burned down Granville. I swear, it was the funniest, most comical moment of my life. Like every single one.
Dad was there.
Yeah, he was like this giant prankster. I just remember like as we were like lighting off these beautiful Chinese lanterns, it was going to be the most gorgeous thing ever. And then all of them almost hit this tree. Like and then they're like, you see them go up and they're going back down onto a house. We're going to light a house on fire. I'm so surprised. Like no fire trucks ever came. We never heard anything. It was insane.
No houses or trees were harmed in this event.
Yeah. But they should have been. And like it was just like so funny of like, okay, like this is like Dad looking down on us and just like cracking up laughing, like we're finding joy right now in this moment, even though like it was like the first year after he was gone. But it was cool, like even in that moment, trying to celebrate him in a beautiful way. It just turns out hilarious, kind of stressful, but like the most like funniest memory I have up to date about of us trying to like be so nice and celebrating Dad, and he was like, I'm gonna make it funny because I'm funny. He was like, you're right, you are funny.
That's exactly right. Well, and I think we really celebrate Dave all year round. And again, my husband Doug, he's been so supportive of our family and what we've gone through, and me, and I always said I could never imagine not talking about Dave because he is so big and so important in our lives. And Doug wouldn't want it any other way either. And so we talk about Dave and just like he's a part of the family. So any story that comes up, we talk about it. Any memory that comes up, we talk about it. And so really we are always talking about him. And it's just interesting, Doug will do something and I'll be like, oh my gosh, Dave would do the exact same. I mean, weird things. And the fact that Doug doesn't like pickles on his hamburger, that was the one thing that Dave didn't like either. And like, oh my gosh, you guys seriously would have been best friends, So we say that all the time, like, you guys are going to have a lot to talk about in heaven, when you see each other. But yeah, so I think we really, we celebrate, all the holidays with Dave's family. We all still We live in the same town together, and we are always together. And so really, we incorporate Dave in every day, practically.
He had all the reason in the world to complain, and yet he was the one who was always encouraging me when I was sad about everything. He was the one who was always the first to crack a joke in a room, and I'm like, here you are lying on this bed. How can you possibly be filled with all this joy and this humor? And I'm crying, and he's like, I love you. Like, it was never about him.
Well, yeah, we always had this saying in our house, the letters joy, and J stands for Jesus first, O is others second, and Y is yourself last. And that's kind of exactly how we've tried to live our life. We have it on our wall to remind us. and I think Dave was an absolute living example of that. We're blessed. We've got so many different blessings. And so everybody has terrible stuff that they've got to deal with in life. And if you focus on that, you can have a pretty negative outlook. But we've always chose to look at the many blessings that we've been given.
Cal, what do you think your dad would think about the Spokes Kids ride?
I mean, I just think that he would be really proud of me and just that I can make a big difference.
Sitting with Becky, Cal, and Gabriella for an afternoon, listening to them talk and support each other through some really tough moments to recall, you just see how strong their bond as a family is. And I've personally been able to witness Cal's ride and see tons and tons of young adults getting on their bikes, chanting one goal. And you know that their family has so much pride. And I think that it all comes from knowing that their dad would be so proud of them and their new bonus family who joins in on the ride and their grandparents and aunts and uncles and really the entire community of Granville. They've been able to rally so many people around Pelotonia and making a difference in their dad's name. So we're just honored to have their entire family as a part of our community. We want to say thank you to our major funding partners who make everything in the Pelotonia world possible. So thank you to the L. Burns Foundation, Huntington, the American Electric Power Foundation, and Peggy and Richard Santulli. The Pelotonia community knows how to go all out. So that's why at the end of each podcast, we're excited to share a few short snippets about events and fundraisers in our community that are happening that may just inspire your next fundraising opportunity. Here to share more about a truly massive ride, some might call it big, that happens every year is my colleague Olivia, who is our ride community coordinator. So Olivia, in this episode, we talked about a really cool ride that happens with some little folks, but talk about our big ride.
So this annual event is hosted at Big Lots headquarters in their parking lot. And they get their senior leaders involved in fundraising the week before to come out and ride in an adult tricycle race in the parking lot.
And they're not just like a little tricycle with big wheels. I mean, they are these like massive structure.
You would need like 4 people to lift this thing up.
Yeah, they're super heavy and they're actually kind of difficult to ride. So it's hilarious to watch their leaders come out and to kind of expand on the fundraising piece of it, right? They the week prior, they set out jars in the cafeteria. They show their fundraising progress on a poster that's in the lobby when you walk in. And the idea is that each leader's team helps them rally support and raise funds. And whoever the top 2 fundraisers are, they go directly to the winner's heat of the ride. They don't have to participate in an initial heat because, like we said, those trikes are heavy. They're kind of hard to pedal. But
they get their workout in.
So then from there, there's 2 groups of the leaders who participate, and they do just a big circle around the parking lot, right? And there's tons and tons of people there cheering them on. They've got horns. They've got pom-poms. They are watching them every step of the way to make sure that they're safe on those tricycles. But it ends up that there's a winner from each of the first 2 heats, and then they come together with those first 2 winners who are cool and dry and not sweaty at that point. And they do the final winners. And it's kind of the closest thing that I've ever gotten to being at the Olympics.
I think the best part about it, too, is when they've got the pump-up music on and all those leaders walk out of the doors in their outfits. They've got capes on, mohawk helmets. I mean, they look great. We truly love celebrating this event with one of our fastest-growing Pelotons each year. And in 2019, they broke the $1 million milestone, and to celebrate that achievement with them that year with that race was just so memorable. It's something we'll never forget.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Olivia. Please stay tuned for a preview of our next episode.
It doesn't say, oh, you have this terrible disease. They say, you have sick cells. And we're going to put a button in under your skin so that we can give you your medicine. And it's your special medicine. And it's going to get rid of the sick cells. And when your hair falls out, it's because your special medicine is working. So it's really a good thing. And they had coached us so well on all of that, that when her hair fell out, the very first kind of clump of hair that she got, she looked at me and smiled, and she said, my medicine's working, Mommy.
You've been listening to One Goal, a podcast from Pelotonia, hosted by me, Bride Community Manager Jill Ondino, with interview production and scheduling by Marketing Communications Manager Emily Smith. Produced, mixed, and sound designed at the studios of Westler Media by Vince Tornero. Additional mastering by Joey Gerwin at Orange Studio. Special thank you to all of our guests for being so open and willing to share their stories. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as that will help others hear these empowering stories. If you're curious about joining the Pelotonia community and making an impact on cancer research, please see the link in the episode notes or visit pelotonia.org. That's pelotonia.org.